Engine swaps have gotten out of control. You know what else has? Our monthly overhead at Drivers Era, because we got a shop and we haven't even moved in yet. So if you want to support us, go check out the website. We got some new gear up there. And while you're doing that, hit that subscribe button because it's free.
Sure, it's on the website.
But anyways, back to engine swaps. I get it, I've done it, I'm guilty of it. I've seen a race car go by on track and thought to myself, what if? And then I come back to reality because I realize I'm not good enough to make that happen properly, and you probably aren't too. Except for Soupy and Mike Burrows. I know you watch my content. I'm sure you could do it, but like the rest of us normal people, we can't actually take a race car engine and put it into a car and make it work well. The last part's the hard part.
What the fuck is that?
I'm having a bad time.
We're having a misfiring issue. Because even if you can get them to physically fit into the car, chances are they're not made for cold starts and longevity on the street. A while back, we actually put a IndyCar engine into a Honda Ridgeline, and getting it to fit was a fiasco, but once it was all in, we actually needed a team of engineers to get the car started. And then once it could turn over, you needed another guy with a laptop to figure out how to run the thing. But on the simple end, we've seen the trendy engine swaps come and go. It's the endless quest to find the next IT engine. You know, the one that could do 2 million horsepower on stock internals, or you can buy replacement engines on the dollar menu. And then there's always the people that want to just put an engine into a car that's never been done before, because that makes it good, right?
Zero faith in this building. Terrence's the only person who's got faith in it.
The goal has always been to craft a unique experience that was not offered from the factory. Whether it's making gobs of power in a chassis that was never made for it, or finding a cheaper and easier solution to make the power that you want. But it all comes at a price, both literally and figuratively. Literally, it costs money, because even though the engines that you're swapping in may be cheap, it comes with a whole smorgasbord of parts that you need to get that thing to work. If you're not a fabricator, and a wiring person, and a tuner, and a chassis guy or girl, chances are you can't make it work. So beyond the engine, you need a swap kit, you need an adapter kit, you need a wiring harness, you need a standalone ECU, and a whole slew of other parts that you didn't think of at the beginning of the swap. I know this because I've been there. I wanted the power or the sound from one engine, but in the looks and the handling characteristics in another. You would think it would be great, but those cars all had one thing in common. They were awesome and they sucked. I put a Toyota 1JZ GTE with a single turbo with a Nissan 6-speed into a Nissan 240SX. I wanted a poor man's Supra. I wanted something I could drift and beat the hell out of and never think about it.
Yeah, boy, Vinny on track, baby.
I also put a 700 horsepower LS3 into an E36 M3 because I wanted a big choppy C6 Corvette, but I liked the way E36s look and I didn't really want to drive a C6 Corvette. Match made in heaven. But the two things those cars had in common is that I thought it would be easy. And it was, to get the motor in the car. But building a good car is hard. And everyone has a different definition of good. Me? I'm like an elderly racer. I still love loud cars that are harsh and rough and sort of annoying, but there are things that I need in a car to make it a good street car. And that's gonna be 1, air conditioning. 2 is low RPM drivability, because chances are you're gonna be sitting in traffic all the time and need a car to be able to just leave idle smoothly. And 3 is a good clutch. And back in the day, everyone is putting single disc puck clutches like the Evo. But nowadays, with good twin disc technology, you could actually have a really good drivable clutch. So that one's fairly easy. It's the age-old saying that 90% of the time goes into the last 10% of the work. And most of us just don't get there. And that's what makes a good car good. So today, I found a car that plucked a motor out of a winning GT3 race car and put it into a street car. And apparently it works really well. And no one has ever driven it in the United States or even the world yet. So we're gonna be the first. Let's go check it out. And this car is what I would consider to be the epitome of European styling, because nearly everything on it has changed, including having a $100,000 race engine in it, but it looks pretty much stock, and it's this. This is Evolve Automotive's P65 swapped 1M. And if you're not familiar with what that motor is, it is actually the engine plucked out of a Z4 GT3 race car and put into a street 1M. It's my buddy Imran's car. He owns Evolve, but he's in the UK, so he loaned me Ravi from CSF to tell us about it.
How are you, man?
The echo in here finally paid off.
Yeah, so I'm Ravi from CSF Cooling. My good friend Imran left me the car. He shipped it over here for the SEMA show. We had it in display at our booth, and then it's been here since November. We just dialed a couple things in with the guys at Bullet Motor Works. It's ready to drive.
But you guys haven't really had this out on the street much yet.
Not much. I literally picked it up today.
I have not seen a single video of this car driving, but I've seen it everywhere on the internet.
Yeah, and it is a little loud in here because we're right next to the airport. So let's get this thing on the road and let's give it a rip.
All right, let's do that, and then we'll give you a full walkthrough of the car and see how it drives.
Right-hand drive. You're driving.
Ooh,
Yeah.
first time driving a right-hand drive E82. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yo, this exhaust note sounds crazy. The tone of the S65 is usually really good because it's like pretty exotic being a 4-liter V8. This has like an even higher pitched crazy tone.
Yeah, I think that's also part of like, you know, the titanium muffler from Abramovich. So you're getting a little bit more of that high pitch, more like exotic car sound.
This is a 4.4 liter cross plane V8, not the flat plane that came in the M3 GT2.
Yep.
So this engine is actually different, but you were saying that previous owner of this engine.
Yeah, so it's Studi AG, which is a big BMW race team and performance aftermarket brand and shop in Japan. They're Imran's distributor for Eventuri, his carbon fiber air intake company. They actually gifted him this engine.
Yeah, Imran said that he actually saw this engine on display at their shop, and it was the engine that was physically in the Z4M GT3 car.
Yep.
And they gave him this motor.
Yeah, so because he tried to buy it, and they're like, we'll give it to you, but we're not, it's gonna be a gift. So they have a really good relationship, him and Bob, the owner of Studi.
So this engine retails, if you could even find them, for about 100,000 euro. And it doesn't work in a street car. This thing is a full-blown race engine. So to get it into this car required a ton of work.
Yeah, you know, it's a SEMA car. You want to get it there and present it. Obviously, this was even a little bit more of a rush because it had to be shipped over from the UK. So there was about, you know, a few weeks on a boat. So since we've had it, it's been at Bullet Motor Works. They've adjusted some of the suspension stuff that needed to get done. They've just fixed a couple of the things, nut and bolt check, all that. But the biggest thing is we had Romain, who's a tuner based in Europe, remote in and do the initial dyno tuning on the car.
Yeah, which is all that makes a good swap car, a good street car, is all of that like fine tuning that makes it drive on the road at low RPM, low load, when you're like sitting in traffic. And immediately when you're driving this car, you realize that it's pretty well sorted. Like for a full-blown high-strung race engine, this actually has good road characteristics. But we're not gonna get into that right now. We're actually gonna go do a full walk around the car, give you guys an in-depth look at it, and then we'll take it back out on the road, we'll do some street pulls, we'll feel what this thing is like at full tilt, and I'm gonna save it for first reaction on camera. I'm not gonna rip on it off camera, so we'll get genuine reaction, but let's find a good quiet spot to go talk about this thing. So we went from where planes are taking off to being under them, but it should be a little bit better. This is Evolve's 1M. Tell us about it.
We'll start with the outside. This is Java Green, which is an individual BMW color.
Oh, this is an original color on this car?
Yes, original color.
The 1 Series is the quirkiest BMW that there is. A lot of people hate on it because it's sort of goofy in some dimensions, but I personally love the 1M because I like small cars, and this is like the size of an E46 M3.
Yeah, it's, you know, we were just driving it here, and you kind of mentioned like, hey, this is a perfect size car, especially because now like the big BMW, the new BMWs are so big.
Massive.
Yeah.
This wasn't factory, right?
No, so there's a carbon roof. They did a great job with that. The wheels are Evolved's wheels, so Imran designed these. He cuts his own wheels.
Super cool design. Also, the 1M has much wider flares than the factory 1 Series, so you're able to fit M3 spec wheels on it. So you could actually get like a nice proper fitment.
CSL style duckbill in the back. He's got the nice diffuser. He's got a really cool mashup on the exhaust setup, which you can, you know, we talked about.
It's the rowdiest sounding 1M, but it's crazier than any E90 M3. And I like the exhaust from a mile away. You could tell it's an Acura based on the shape of the muffler and some of the stampings on it.
So he's got the Acura muffler combined with a Super Sprint exhaust.
Yeah, it
So,
sounds
yeah.
nuts.
So up front, OEM Plus, you know, he worked with IND and, you know, did a lot of like some of the blackout stuff, delete the chrome. It's just what they do, some of his partners. It's just a really good looking BMW.
It's crazy because it's a mostly stock car on the outside, but what's under the hood is insane. The interior is also really nice. Let's look at that first.
Yeah. A nice place to be sitting, and you know, again, kind of the theme of the car. It's done so well. It's so OEM Plus. You really didn't even know what's factory and what's not.
Yeah, the Sparco carbon seats are rad, but they have the matching green stitching, green belts, which I don't know what's stock and what's not in this car. Like, is all the green stitching and stuff OEM, or is that aftermarket?
No, so that's all aftermarket. So they did a really good job with like the Alcantara, you know, on the door panels, some of the carbon bits. The stitching work is really impressive. Imran's got his new paddles that he makes through his company called Made. So these are new billet paddles that he's just come
they
out
feel
with.
really nice.
Just kind of is like an E92 M3 inside.
And this is what I was saying before. Like, I love that the ethos of a Euro car build is like, you do so much for people to think maybe it was just made like this. So let's look under the hood.
Absolutely.
And this is where I think the insanity starts, because this looks like a stock ass motor. Did you catfish me? Did I show up here and this is just a S65 swap? The 1M never came with a V8. Although it shares a lot of the same parts as the E90 and E92 M3, this actually came with the N55 engine, which is a 3-liter inline 6 turbo. So it never had a V8. And this one, although it looks like a bone stock E90, is actually a race engine.
This is the P65 BMW Motorsports motor. It was a dry sump that's now being converted to wet sump. It's got all the Eventuri parts on it. So it's got the plenum, the cold air intake system.
And that's actually because the P65 race engine comes with a carbon fiber airbox that actually takes air in through the front. And on street car applications, you have things like fans, radiators, AC condensers, so you can't run that. But Eventuri makes all of this stuff for the E9X platform, so it was natural to just run that stuff. It still has crazy induction noise, and I can't imagine it really does anything negative for power.
No, I mean, this thing is ripping. It sounds great still. And it looks OEM Plus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is really what, like you said, European swaps are all about.
It's crazy to me that not only does it look OEM Plus, but it literally looks factory. Like, you did a crazy engine swap that required not only putting an oil pan back on it, changing out the camshafts, making a GT3 race engine fit in a street car, but dressed it up as if it were just like rolled off the factory floor.
Absolutely. I mean, even this thing being on Syvex, which is a standalone ECU, the way that all the wires have been covered and tucked, I mean, it just looks very factory, and I don't think you can beat a better job than what these guys have done.
If you walked up to this car and you wanted to see what was done to it, you'd be like, I don't know, maybe it comes with a factory carbon air setup. It's got some billet caps on things, but this is a over $100,000 race engine. It makes 500 wheel horsepower NA. It revs to 9,000 RPM. It's a 4.4 liter cross plane V8. So it's a very rowdy engine. And this one was physically out of a race car. So it had won races before and competed with this exact engine.
Yeah, it's the real deal. They did a great job. For my brand, it's got all the CSF cooling parts on the front side of it.
Which is what?
That is the radiator, power steering cooler, the engine oil cooler, and the transmission oil cooler. So it's got the whole 4-piece package on it.
Yeah, for a good street car and a good track car, you know cooling is absolutely essential, and BMWs love to overheat, so having a proper cooling package on this car is super important. Well, I am honored to be the first person in the United States, actually, I think like the world, to drive this car on the road and get some actual reaction to it. And I told you before, I haven't ripped on it yet, so I'm saving it. So let's get this out on the road.
Let's do it.
All right, so I've been a little never quite got to the point of being perfectly dialed as street cars. But this car is doing exceptionally well. I think one of the most interesting facts about this build is that they took the P65 engine and they actually downsized the camshafts, because even though the motor has variable valve timing, it's still too extreme to have low-end drivability on the street. So Imran actually downsized the camshafts to something that could be more street drivable. And that's why we're able to cruise around at low RPM and have like a livable car.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we've been driving it a little bit of stop and go traffic with the lights, and you could daily this car, you know?
You really could. And the thing I find crazy is like down low, when you're just cruising around town, it sounds like a modified E92 M3.
Yeah.
But the second this thing has some beans behind it and it's up in the RPM, it sounds crazy. Like when you did that little flyby, it straight up sounds like you're at the track.
A BMW V8 with that exotic tone, you know? It's really nice.
Let's give it a hear. Induction noise on these cars never fails. We didn't even mention it, but if you don't know anything about the S65, which comes in the E92 M3, much like the P65, these have individual throttle bodies. So paired with the Eventuri Carbon Plenum, which they don't advertise as making more horsepower, it is all about induction noise, and it really amplifies the sound. Like the induction noise on this engine is incredible. Like it is the whole experience. Much like we talked about in all of the Honda episodes and talking about like NA cars at rev highs, you don't get that kick in the pants feel of torque that you get in all the modern turbocharged cars that have twin turbos or variable vane turbos and whatever, but it's all about just that high rev visceral feeling of this car. This thing feels so special.
I think that's the best part of it. You know, like I've driven other stroker V8s and like from S65, and this has that same feeling. And you know, even for this car, we got limited by fuel on the dyno. Like this thing would have made more power, but we're on, you know, bad 91 California gas.
The dog water California fuel.
Yeah, you might as well put water in it next time, you know? So I think once we get some good fuel in the car, a little bit more time with some more logging on like on-road dynoing, I mean, this car's gonna be a dream.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, definitely pulls.
This thing is sick. Woo, man, I love NA V8s. Nothing better than a high-strung, high-revving, small displacement V8. It's why I love the 360 so much, and it's why the E92 M3 and any S65 or P65 1M is going to go down in history as one of the greatest driver's cars ever. You don't need a ton of horsepower to have that. Like big horsepower is fun and speed is never not fun, but 500 horsepower, 9,000 RPM, and naturally aspirated V8 with that induction noise is like insane. Big thanks to Imran at Evolve and Ravi at CSF for putting this together. This was an experience to drive. I don't know if it convinced me that engine swaps are good street cars, but they definitely did a good job on it. But y'all got more money than me, so.
Because I'm on money.
If you like this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I make videos every Thursday. Thanks to everyone who is subscribed, but for now, I'm gonna go walk around this really nice looking place and go look at cars.